Welcome, everybody, to the Brass Check, the very occasional, the very irregular, the very rare Brass Check TV podcast. Today we've got a guest I'm really excited to be talking with. This is somebody that I've admired for a long time. You know him because we've sent lots of links to his channel over the years, both when he started and after he got onto RT with his program Redacted Tonight. You now know who I'm talking about. Welcome, Lee Camp.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be a rarity on the Rare podcast.
Yeah, you're a rare guest on the Rare podcast. So one of the reasons we've got Lee on is he's done a great show that everybody should check out. It's got a very long title. Just grab a few words. You'll get most of it. Super patriotic, very Uncle Sam. Comedy special, not allowed on TV, and I did have a chance to watch it, and it just made my heart glad.
Oh, thanks.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the things I say to people is, look, we don't get the education we deserve, we don't get the medical services we deserve, we don't get the politicians we deserve, but we can't complain about the media because there are people like you who are giving us the straight story. And the deal is, if we want media like Lee Camp and people like him, we got to support them. I mean, it's really simple. We pay money for the newspaper. We pay money for the cable news. I just want to encourage everybody, don't take people like Lee and Abby Martin and Jimmy Dore and the people that we admire so much. Do not take them for granted. Sign up for their mailing lists. If they're doing something, check it out. Watch the shows. Talk it up amongst your friends. It's really important. We do ultimately get the media we deserve, and so it's really up to us. So Lee, now you started out as a comedian, yeah?
Yeah, I've been doing stand-up for about 20 years now, actually. Yeah, started when I was 17.
Wow. And when did you start adding, we will call it political commentary to your show?
It got more political when I was about, started inching in there, like 22, 23. I started waking up more. I think a lot of it had to do with the invasion of Iraq and the whole ridiculous WMD crap. And so, that it started getting more and more into my stand-up act. And I also kind of enjoyed that challenge more of, like, can I make a whole crowd of, very different types of people laugh and, appreciate the comedy, even though I'm talking about dark subjects. I'm talking about our endless wars. I'm talking about homelessness. And so it kind of just kept growing in my stand-up routine until, eventually that's kind of all I do is cultural commentary and politics and things like that. Although, as I say at the beginning of the comedy special, I don't, I say I'm going to say Trump's name about twice throughout this entire hour. And, a lot of that is because I feel like our politicians are a bit of a sideshow. A lot of what can be changed in the world or what we need to change, should be done with kind of a revolution of the mind. And then we can force the politicians to do those things, but we got to wake up first.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they're designed to be sideshows. I mean, between Trump and Obama and Bush and Clinton and going all the way back, I think they're put in place to distract us while they pick our pockets.
Well, and that's why Trump's so perfect, is because he perfectly gets everyone so furious and fired up, and rightly so. But if everyone's pointing their tip of their spear only at him, then they're missing the entire pillaging that's going on by Wall Street or the environmental destruction or the endless prison system and wars, going on constantly. We're ignoring all of that while we're pointing at Trump. And so he's kind of perfect. And then if you look at Obama was kind of the reverse. Man, did the prison state, the surveillance state, and the endless war go down smooth with nice intellectual Obama. It's both of them serve a different kind of purpose.
It seems like they alternate, like they give us a Clinton, then they give us a Bush. They give us a Bush, then they give us an Obama. They give us an Obama, then they give us a Trump. So then I imagine the next guy is going to be more Obama-Clinton-like. Who knows?
Well, yeah, it will quite possibly could be, kind of like Kamala Harris, where you're like, oh, well, it's a black person, it's a woman that's so progressive and so evolved of our country. But if she's putting in the same policies as Obama, allowing the banks to run wild and the prisons to run wild and everything, then it's exactly the same. It just looks really nice.
Speaking of bizarre progressiveness, I watch MSNBC and I feel like I'm tripping on acid. It's like, am I really seeing? Yeah. Am I really seeing this on television? Am I really hearing Rachel Maddow talk for an hour every night about absolutely nothing?
Yeah, it's so mind-blowing. I used to, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I used to like Rachel Maddow when she was on radio, and I was kind of less awake. And I was like, oh, she's the one of the good guys. She's talking about kind of left wing with decreased inequality and stuff like that. And she used to point to, and so many of these talking heads used to point to McCarthyism as this dark time in America's past when we were so barbaric and we just let our intellectual faculties go by the wayside, and we just pointed fingers and said, you're a Russian, everybody's a Russian. And now they're all doing it. They're all doing it again. We're in the middle of it again. It's amazing to just see it all happen all over again.
It's mind-boggling. And one of the things that people miss, maybe just because of historical amnesia, is we're celebrating, we're commemorating the 100th anniversary of World War I. And if you read the book Brass Check, which was written by Upton Sinclair, excellent book, completely censored from the mind bank of America, that he considered that his most important book along with The Jungle, right? He self-published it. It was in all languages. It was the best critique of the press ever. But anyway, in that book, he talks about how the World War I was ginned up to kill the social movements that were active in those days, and of course one of the great demons were the Ruskies, the Bolsheviks. There was a Bolshevik in every bathroom,
right.
So it's like they pull these playbooks out and they just use them over and over again, and we don't even notice it.
Yeah, Nelson. There's very old newspaper headlines accusing Nelson Mandela of being communist-backed, Martin Luther King of being communist-backed. Like, these things, this is not a new story.
Hey, well, tell us a little bit about what it was like when you were first injecting the political things into your show, because that had to be a little risky at first, because that's not something commonly done, especially in the era when you were doing it, right? Everything was Jerry Seinfeld and, keep it light.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if that's changed that much. I mean, I guess there's some comedians that are doing more cultural commentary and stuff, but there's still a lot of fluff out there as well. But yeah, there were moments where it could get awkward or it could get weird or it became difficult, but I did become pretty crafty at kind of putting the ice cream with the medicine so that an audience could enjoy the show and still learn something. And even if they disagreed with me, they'd still, have those punchlines in their head, and it would make them think about what it was I said. And I got pretty good at it. So because in New York, I was never, and I wasn't a name or anything. So I was never playing to my audiences. I was playing to just a bunch of, Midwest tourists combined with a bunch of New Yorkers, and you kind of had to make them all relate at some degree, or you were going to be bombing every night, and I wasn't making enough money to be bombing every night and get fired from every comedy club. So it was definitely it's kind of a tightrope walk. You're constantly like judging things. Am I tipping a little this way? Am I tipping a little that way? Am I losing them? And then I would have some, easier jokes to win them back, and then I'd go into the darker stuff until I lost them again, and then bring them back.
Okay. And then you were doing those shows in New York?
Yeah, I did thousands of shows in New York City. I lived there for 12 years, and while I was touring colleges, I would go back to New York and sometimes do 3 shows a night. I was only doing like 10 minutes, but still, it's on a show with a bunch of people. But it was kind of a endless, trial by fire. You're thrown into the New York crowds as a 23-year-old and try and navigate what'll make them not throw a sharp glass at you.
God. And then somewhere around we were trying to remember before we started recording, 2010, 2011, you put yourself on YouTube. What was the name of that show?
Yeah, I started doing a YouTube series called Moment of Clarity.
Right,
That was,
right.
it was about 5 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week, a different rant on cultural commentary and everything. And it just happened to kind of dovetail with Occupy. I was asked to do a video supporting an occupation of Wall Street and a Move Your Money Day. And that was for June before Occupy. And that one didn't really take, not enough people signed on. And then other people that I didn't have any contact with kind of kept moving the idea forward, got Adbusters to sign on and some others. And then, September 11th, I was there that first night. It was definitely some heady times. And some people look at Occupy as a failure, but I think if you look at really the cultural paradigm it set up, or rather upended maybe, and the terminology and the thought that it, went out through this country like ripples on a pond. Like, we're still using the terms like 99%. We're still thinking about inequality. I don't think you would have seen, without Occupy, I don't think you would have seen the Bernie Sanders movement. I don't think you would have seen, or perhaps even Black Lives Matter, but the, Fight for 15. So many things probably couldn't have happened without laying that groundwork.
It was painted by the media as a failure. I mean, they went overtime trying to make that look bad. But I think you're absolutely right. It stirred up a lot of stuff, got a lot of people conscious, in spite of all the attacks that it was under, including apparently, you probably heard that story where the FBI knew some lunatic was targeting some of the leaders with death, and they just sat on the information. They didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, it leaked out later that the FBI knew that at least a guy or a couple of guys, and it was either Dallas or Houston, were, literally scoping out how to, assassinate Occupy members from the buildings around the occupation, and didn't do anything about it. It didn't end up happening, but they just didn't do anything to try and stop it. And, and that's just one of the many things that came out later. Occupy in various cities was heavily infiltrated. It was a lot of plainclothes cops and plenty of, cops with uniforms on as well. But they were also, whenever someone would get out of jail that didn't have anywhere to go, they would bring them to Occupy. They would bring homeless people to Occupy. They just did everything they could to make it completely untenable because, Occupy, what Occupy stood for, is very dangerous for this country. The idea of, putting people before profit and decreasing inequality and making it so that, we stop living under a false scarcity where you have 4 to 6 empty, foreclosed upon houses on our landscape for every homeless person. I mean, it's a completely ridiculous system, and Occupy was calling attention to it.
And it was an informed protest too. It wasn't just, they tried to make it seem like a random, bunch of hooligans, but in fact it was people that were very informed and making an effort to inform themselves about what was actually going on.
Yeah.
Hey, now you're on RT, which is great. And the show's Redacted Tonight?
Yeah, RT America, Redacted Tonight. I basically was on Abby Martin's show as a kind of unpaid commentator, and I was on Max Kaiser's and some others. And RT noticed me, and they've never had a comedy show, but they asked me if I could create one. And so 4.5 years ago, we created Redacted Tonight and have seen it grow steadily. So it's really been exciting to see people get excited for this kind of information.
Now, YouTube though has put a cap. No matter how popular you get and how excited people get, you're not going to get more than a certain amount of people on YouTube, right? You're hitting that wall.
Well, yeah, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. There's all some level of suppression. With YouTube, whenever I tweet out, "Hey, people have been telling me that YouTube's unsubscribing them against their knowledge, without them seeking to be unsubscribed. Check and see if you have been." I always get, a dozen tweet back saying, "Yeah, I was unsubscribed." What? Yeah. What? Oh, I didn't even realize. I was wondering why I hadn't heard from you in a while. So YouTube is just, unsubscribing people. They're not showing our videos to people. And then the worst one though is Facebook. I've had a rather large Facebook page. It hit about 335,000 followers about 2 years ago. And guess what? It has never gotten past that. It has literally stayed on 335,000 for 2 years. And you'll see the numbers like fluctuated, but they'll just unfollow people to make sure it never gets beyond 335, which is hilarious. It's like, to give no reason. I've never been contacted. They never said, hey, you've gotten too big. And, you can look at analytics and see that roughly 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, basically the key thing they did at Facebook, and this goes, I think, for Google as well, is they just stopped things from being able to go viral. So you can have a post do a little better than it used to, or, this one may get, if I have a really big one, it'll get 1,000 shares. Well, I used to have really big ones that would get 60,000 shares, but that's impossible now. It's just, you can look at the spikes. There are no big viral posts anymore.
Which is crazy because, you're better known than ever. Your audience is bigger than ever. I think these issues are more interesting to people than ever. So the virality or the virality or whatever it is should be, continuing. And, they're definitely shutting it down. I had a couple of multi-million YouTube views. I had one that hit 5 million. That doesn't happen.
Nope, that does not happen.
It's so people should know. So I want to encourage everybody. When you're watching Lee's show Redacted Tonight, on YouTube, make sure you sign up for on YouTube, of course, but sign up for his email list. Okay, because if you're on his email list, none of these demons and devils. Well, they can make it difficult to deliver the email, but you can always get around that, if you have enough time and enough effort. But they can't shut you out the way YouTube and Facebook are doing. So definitely sign up for Lee's email list. And I also want to remind everybody, check out Lee's special. It's really good. Again, it will make you'll be like, wow, finally somebody's just telling the truth about things. And that's Lee Camp, LeeCampComedySpecial.com, and it's LEE campcomedyspecial.com. And is it true, Mr. Lee, Mr. Camp, that you are a descendant of Robert E. Lee? Is that or is that just a rumor?
That is true. I'm descended from and named after Robert E. Lee, as well as George Washington. I'm not named after George Washington. I'm just descended from. And then we also, my family's also descended, and we also have this name, descended from Walter Camp, who, if you look him up on Wikipedia, is basically the inventor. He's called the father of American football. Oh. So you can't. He basically took rugby and said, hey, we're going to start throwing it forward, and here's the down system and the field goal system, and everybody said, what the hell are you doing? What do you mean you're throwing it forward? So we're about as new American as you can get, and yet these days I'm called a foreign agent because we're in the neo-McCarthyist days where you can't question corporate America or you're some sort of Russian agent. So it's truly insane. Oh, and before I forget, I want to give a discount code to your listeners. It's Uncle Sam, one word, will get you 25% off at LeeCampComedySpecial.com.
Great. LeeCampComedySpecial.com, and make sure you put in the code word Uncle Sam and save yourself a few bucks. It's a great show, better than any movie you're going to go to. And the name of the show is Super Patriotic, Very Uncle Sam Comedy Special, not allowed on TV. Lee Camp, thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for all that you do. You really give us hope when we see you on the internet.
Hey, such a pleasure, and it really is so cool you to have me on, and keep fighting a good fight.